Hello, hello. Welcome. How journey mapping transforms customer experience presentation. Hello. Okay, let's hop in. Journey mapping. So first of all, typically there's two of us making this presentation. Today there's just one of us. Randy is not able to join us, so it's just me. Just get me on the far edge. That's me, Chris Dion. Today, of course, is journey mapping. Next month is easy competitive research to help you design your marketing. There's a slew of free tools out there that enable you to understand and learn what your competitors are doing. In November, using LinkedIn to grow your business. There's been a fundamental shift in LinkedIn. I would say about 5 years ago, it was very difficult to use LinkedIn to grow your business. Now it's not only great way to grow your business, but because of COVID, where you're unable to go to as many offline events, now you're reaching out to people even more often using LinkedIn, and it can and does work. A little bit about me and Randy. We work with business to business and direct to consumer companies of all different sizes. We have worked for companies, including the companies that you see over at the right. Randy helped start Kinko's, which was bought by FedEx and is now FedEx Office. I worked for TurboTax, Intuit's TurboTax, back when it was a much smaller company. It's grown quite a bit since then. ProFlowers, the VP of operations of Intuit went over and started ProFlowers, and I joined them, and a few others. We also teach marketing, and we do at San Diego State University, Point Loma Nazarene, Cal Poly, and other places. And we're regular lecturers at other businesses like WeWork and other events like Startup Week. Okay, marketing journals and funnels. So what I'm going to discuss today, and if you were hoping that I was going to simply walk you through the GreenRope's journeys, I'm not going to do that per se, because what I wanted to present to you today is present you the concept of journey mapping and why it's important and how to get that big picture concept of journey mapping done. I love marketing. I love every day doing marketing. And this is actually, I still enjoy it, but it is one of the most difficult processes to actually implement. Whenever somebody says, let's journey map our customers' behavior, I keep on thinking, okay, I'm going to need to map out a couple of weeks worth of time to figure out how to do that. It just takes a little bit of time. We'll go through that though, and I'll give you some tips and hints on how to make it easier. What is a customer journey? It is the customer's path via touch points to their decisions to purchase an item. The operative word here is customer. It is not what you think they should be doing. It's what they are doing to purchase an item. How many times does it take a customer to see your ad or to see your product before deciding to purchase? The rule has always, it's something called the marketing rule of 7. About 4 years ago, somebody said that's no longer true. It's now the rule of 11. And then, thank you, Lindsay, somebody increased that to the rule of 25. I just spoke to a gentleman yesterday that runs an ad tech firm, and they currently run 35 ads to one individual person per month. Okay, that's not 35 total, it's per month. He goes, yeah, we don't see much really traction until we hit 30. It's a lot, right? Okay, so there's all these rules, right? The marketing rule is 7, some say 11. Somebody told me yesterday 30, but consider this. It depends, but what does it depend upon? Does anybody remember from, gosh, it might have been, anybody go to college and take marketing classes, you might have heard something called a low involvement decision versus a high involvement decision. If you're in sales, you've probably heard this, right? A low involvement decision means it doesn't take much energy to make the decisions in your mind, right? Versus a high involvement decision, there's a lot of issues to be considered before making those purchases. So the issues that go on in a person's mind before making a decision typically are these items. How important is it in my life? Is it risky? Does it involve me, my time, my brain power? Does it take a lot of time, and how much is it? For example, the importance, if you're buying a stick of gum, the importance to you is probably pretty low. The risk is low. The involvement is low. Time is low. Cost is low. It is a low involvement decision, right? A high involvement decision might be buying a Tesla, right? Importance is high because it needs to get you to work. Risk is high because, well, I don't know, maybe if it's an unsafe vehicle or if it catches on fire or something like that, the involvement is definitely high, right? Time, yeah, high. Cost, very high. So it starts moving to a higher involvement decision. So if any of these are high, it moves to high involvement. Any of these are low, it moves to low involvement. Low involvement means less amount of times you need to hit, typically, not always, typically less amount of times you need to touch that person with an advertisement and engagement piece opposed to a PR piece. High involvement decision typically means you need to hammer away at them and have a lot of different touch points, right? Other things that go into determining if it's a low involvement versus a high involvement. If you already have experience with the product, you start now moving to a low involvement decision. If it's socially acceptable, I'll give you a case in point. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you were buying a Tesla, it wasn't quite as socially acceptable as it is now. It was a high involvement decision. Now that the Tesla's more, you see it more on the road, it starts moving to a lesser involvement decision. Maybe not low involvement, but lesser involvement. If the brand is highly recognizable, it immediately starts moving to a lower involvement decision. Guarantees. I guaranteed that this will work or your money back no matter what. Just send it back to us and we'll take care of it. Moves people to a lower involvement. If you're in business to business, the number of decision makers complicates the customer journey considerably and therefore makes it a higher involvement, right? So again, lower involvement means an easier journey, higher involvement, complicated journey. So again, how many times does it take to see your message before somebody converts? It depends. Typically, it depends on low involvement versus high involvement. Okay, so before we show you some journeys, let's go through a couple of things. Why is building a marketing journey important? And why does a journey even exist? Why does a customer go through multiple touch points? I want you to consider this. People buy from someone. It's interesting that it says someone, not just someplace, right? Someone they know, like, and trust. To build this trust, it can take time and will require you possibly multiple places to interject yourself, your thoughts, your ideas, and interact with the customer, okay? So this is why a journey map is important. Ways to build a journey map, there are many different ways, right? But sometimes what you're doing is you're telling a story from a journey. So you may see an ad, let's say it's a 15-second ad on television. Do you think you can fully understand what that company does or what that product does or how you should interact with it in 15 seconds? No. Usually it's the beginning of a journey that requires you to go on to the next level. Either you go to the showroom at the car place or you go online and you start studying about mattresses. That ad is the beginning of the story. But then you start telling your story in the ad and you continue that story in your other places wherever you're communicating your messages. Another way to build trust in the journey is to show how much you know, not just about the product, but about your industry. If you're in business to business world, you're oftentimes sharing your knowledge of the industry that you're in. So if you're selling printed postcards, you're going to share your knowledge of not just about printing, but your knowledge of how postcards is a great way of increasing your business, or postcards is a great way of getting people to your wedding, of postcards, and here's the different types of postcards, and here's what other people in other countries are doing with postcards, and whatever. You're showing your knowledge of the industry. That gains trust. You also want to show how much you care. And when we say care, it means care about who you are as a company and how you would treat them as a customer. And then be helpful and supportive all the way along in order to build that trust. Okay, we still haven't shown you journeys. I just want to make sure to set this up before we show that. Sometimes companies will build a journey and they stop the journey map at the time of the first sale. That's actually the middle of your journey. Because if you're doing things properly, you'll be able to get them, number one, to buy more, right, on top of that first sale, but also refer you on to other people. So if you can continue that journey map beyond that first sale, I think you'll come up with some genius marketing strategies to continue to grow your business. Okay, what's the difference between a journey versus funnel? We've all heard of the marketing and sales funnel. And what's the difference between a journey map and a funnel? I'll show you an example right here. On the left-hand side, you'll see a typical funnel. You get a lead. You determine whether or not that lead is qualified. You nurture that lead. That lead becomes an active lead, meaning they have a higher engagement rate. There's a high qualification. That means that it needs to be handed over to sales. So there's this marketing funnel. Then sales takes the leads, turns them into an opportunity, meaning, yeah, this person's for real. They possibly will purchase the product, and then you sell them, right? So all of this is from a business point of view. And it's extremely measurable. You can measure each one of these steps, and you can do this in GreenRope, right, in the CRM. You can measure each one of these steps. You can even assign it a score all the way through. The customer journey map isn't so structured. It's a little bit, if you look at it right here on the right-hand side, it looks a little chaotic. And that's because, it sounds funny, but it's a little chaotic because it's coming from the customer's point of view. The business funnel is done in such a way so that you can actually control and measure. The customer doesn't care to be controlled or measured. So the journey for them is going to be all over the place, right? So it's a little bit more complicated, and it's a lot more difficult to measure, okay? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It's just a different way of looking at it. Notice how this has this business flow up here, and it's more like lead turning to an opportunity and then closed. Versus up here on the top of this journey map, you'll see it's education solution selection. It's a different viewpoint. Matter of fact, rather than go through this education solution selection, the most common approach that most of you on this webinar will do is something called AIDA. AIDA is still taught in universities and MBA programs to this day, and it is awareness, interest, desire, action. It is the flow that somebody starts from first discovering that you are in existence all the way to purchasing the product. Notice how the post product is in here yet. But awareness is your advertising, your social media, your videos, your events, whatever you're doing to initiate a contact between you and your prospect. Yes, that means television advertising, e-commerce, whatever it is out there, right? Any type of advertising. Then once they become aware, they move into an interest phase. For B2B companies, oftentimes it's landing pages, right? So you have an ad in Facebook or LinkedIn, and it goes to a landing page where you're offering a guide or a webinar. And then once they fill out a form to get that guide or to join the webinar, that email automatically goes into GreenRope, and a drip email campaign is sent out afterwards. The drip emails are designed to continue to build a rapport and build credibility with that person. So you might do, oftentimes we do somewhere between 6 to 8, sometimes 15 drip emails that continue to tell the story over time, because if you try to tell a story in 5 sentences, it's a little short to tell a story, right? So we'll do 5 sentences in one email, and then another email the next week, another 5 sentences in an email, and we build upon it, so it builds a story over time. And then the desire part is the salesperson gets on there on the phone, continues to build the rapport and credibility, and then asks for the order, and that's the buy. So this is what it may look like, right? So if this is, the funnel right here, a journey map may look more like this, where there's the awareness, consideration, purchase, and onboarding, and there's all these steps and situations that happen. So for example, whenever you're looking at a journey map, typically what happens is at the very top, you have the scenario. So the scenario would be trying to get diverse-led businesses as clients. And then your goals and expectations are, we want to gain awareness and interest, and we're trying to get people, get these businesses signed up to the program and then get them to refer other companies. So then all the way along, there's the different programs. Remember I said awareness, interest, desire, action? Well, I kind of changed that for this company because I try to put it in words that a customer would use. Now, those are the stages. These are the touch points along the way. So the touch point, an example of a touch point would be clicked on a banner ad, got an email from a business partner, saw us on television in a PR place, something like that. Or when they learn more about us, that could mean that they read an e-guide or attended a webinar. Then the engages, they talk to somebody on the phone. Or an example of an engagement, it doesn't mean that they just have to have a touch point with you. They could have a touch point with a partner. They could say they contacted their business partner to ask, is this company good? Or they called another company and said, what do you think? Have you used this company before, right? Those are examples even of an engagement. And then sign up is all the steps and touch points for the sign up. This number 6 is a kind of a sentiment. So it's how they're feeling at the time. In other words, when they first learning, they're curious, but when they're engaging, they might feel anxious or concerned or skeptical. So you can also capture sentiment all the way along, because if you know that they're skeptical, like number 6 here, you see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that may mean they're skeptical. So they're engaged, they talk to a salesperson on the phone, it sounds too good to be true, they're skeptical. If you know that that's the stage that they're skeptical, that's when you pull out your testimonials. You don't have to do testimonials all the way along. That's when you do testimonials. And that's why we have these opportunities boxes here. So each way along, you're saying, okay, here's the touch point, here's what they're doing, here's their sentiment at the time, and here's the opportunity we have to help them through the buying cycle as it relates to their sentiment. And then who owns it? Okay, does that make sense? So each company does it a little different. This is a customer journey map for another client, and they make life insurance software. Okay, not the sexiest thing in the world, but they sell this to something called case designers. You see it says persona presented, case designers. So they actually have 3 different buyers. They have the person who pays for it, the person who decides to buy it, and the person who uses it. This right here is the person who uses the software. So they are mapping the touch point of everybody that uses the software. So here's what they're doing, the request. They create a case, they send it to the salesperson, and then they reiterate, they do it again, right? And here's the interaction or the touch point, and here's the thinking. You see, they call it thinking. I sometimes call it sentiment. So sentiment means, you know, if they're anxious or if they're nervous or whatever. Thinking could just be something like here. They have agents sometimes want only certain carriers, like there's a specific issue. So the thinking or sentiment goes here, and then you put your opportunities down below. This is not an easy process. So the way I start to build a journey map is to not start with this template. What I do is I start with a pen and paper. First of all, I write this. I don't say, how do I advertise to my customers? For the first section, right here, this section, this is, this is our advertising, but this is a funnel. This is in my terms. So instead of putting it in my terms, I put it in the customer's terms. So I say, how do people discover us? Not how do I advertise to them. How do people discover us? They discover us on LinkedIn. They discover us because a friend told them. They discover us because they saw us in the press, right? So I write that down. And then I say, how do they want to learn more about us? Not just how do they learn, but how do they want to learn more about us? What do they prefer? Do they prefer this? Do they prefer that? Do they prefer a webinar? Do they prefer a video? Right? So start writing that down. And then make sure also include how do they learn about us? So I'll put in how they prefer. If they prefer videos and I'm not doing videos, I'll put that in yellow. If they prefer email and we are doing email, I'll put it in green, for example. I kind of capture both in there. So I write this all down in paper, not putting it into any structure at first. And then after I have it on paper, then I pull out this template. You do not have to follow the template, but for me, I'm assuming for you all, it's easier if you start with something in front of you and then you start filling in. And then if it doesn't work for you, you can change it on your own, right? Okay, so that's the general gist of developing a journey map. Notice how this does not mean it's only online. Journey maps, if you're doing it correct, means any way that people have an interaction or a decision with you and your company. I don't know if you all know this, but you can buy other companies' journey maps. The most popular journey map to go out there and buy is Tony Robbins' marketing funnel. There are 2 or 3 companies that what they've done, because Tony Robbins has done a really good job marketing their coaching system. It's really sophisticated. And what people have done is, as they've purchased or as they have interacted with any content of Tony Robbins, they've captured it. So I don't know if you could see it here, but here they've captured, that this company has captured all the Facebook ads, all the emails, all the landing pages, all the thank you pages, all the follow-up to anything Tony has done, and then stored it in a database, and then mapped it out, and then they'll sell it to you. The name of the company that does this is called Funalytics. Sometimes you do it not to quote unquote steal somebody else's funnel, but you're doing it because you're stuck and you're trying to figure out ways to enhance your own, and you might borrow some ideas from other companies. Let's see, they have funnels already built. Funnels, they're not really funnels, they're almost really digital customer journeys for all these different types of programs. You can see the names of the companies down here on some of them. But here is a lead magnet funnel versus a mini class funnel versus a product sales funnel versus a survey funnel. And you can purchase them right through Funalytics. Building a journey in your email system. Customer journey maps, when done properly, is not digital only. It's everything. Once you've developed your current customer journey map on like a document, like I showed, or on a piece of paper, by going through that process, it will give you the idea of what you really need to do digitally in GreenRope. So you can start by sitting in front of GreenRope and start dragging and dropping and building your journey. Or what I would recommend is building it first. Then, you know, when you look in front of GreenRope, you're like, you know what, I know exactly what I need to do. And it's not based on what somebody else is doing. It's not based off borrowing somebody else's funnel like Tony Robbins. It's based off of what you know about your customers and you know how they interact with you. So that's really what you should be doing. Then you can go into GreenRope. If you go to journeyflow.com, that's one of GreenRope's systems that enables you to do this, right? But in GreenRope, there's something right here called Journeys. And if you go to Journey, you can start your journey map here. But this is just for your digital section of the journey. So let's say you sign somebody up to the webinar, and now you want to do the the 2 drips, prior to the webinar. Then they attended the webinar, and then you want people that attended the webinar to get a 5-drip email campaign, and people that didn't get a different 5-drip email. All that is done right here in the journey campaign. Pretty sophisticated. You can do so much that we could easily talk 2 hours just on this alone. A couple of things that I mentioned here is Funnelytics, which we mentioned, the Tony Robbins system, as well as the journey flow. You want ideas for how to build a journey map, but you kind of get stuck. I would recommend starting with a piece of paper first to get the ideas going, but then you can always go and just simply do a search for journey maps, customer journey maps, and click on images in Google, and you're going to get a lot of different companies. There are a couple of companies in San Diego that are well known for journey maps, specifically ServiceNow. They do a great job with their personas, and they have, I think, 12 different personas, and they have journey maps for each of those different personas. But you'll even notice here, do you notice how each company has roughly a similar, kind of graphical interface for their journey map? It's hard to see here, but you kind of get the idea, right? But they're all a little bit different. So you need to find the journey map that kind of fits your style and what you can do. To me, I find journey maps work best when you're the one creating them. It's not the document that's important. It's the process that's important. Kind of going through thinking about your customer as you're thinking about what they go through as they interact with you. That's what's important. You can build the digital portion of your journey in GreenRope, which I would recommend. You can pay, I think it might be $900 for Funnelytics. I'm not sure. It's a little expensive, but there are other charting systems that help you build journey maps as well. So they have pre-built templates. So that's a top level kind of viewpoint of journey maps. There are other questions about implementing journeys. There is an email address right here, implementation@greenrope.com. Please reach out to them. Or if you have questions about specifically GreenRope, support@greenrope.com. That's what they're there for. Or if you have questions about journeys, whether it be in GreenRope or in general, email me. There's no cost. We're here to help. Reach out if you have any questions. Other than that, have fun with your journeys.